Imagine a container ship leaving the bustling ports of China, cutting across icy waters of the Arctic, and arriving in the United Kingdom in just 18 days. That's not a futuristic concept, it just happened. This isn't a one-off trial or a publicity stunt. China has officially opened a fully operational Arctic shipping route connecting its major ports to key hubs in Europe, including the UK, the Netherlands, Germany, and Poland. The scale of this is enormous. Traditionally, cargo from China had to follow the main highways of global trade, the Suez Canal, the Strait of Malacca, or, in emergencies, the long detours around the Cape of Good Hope. These routes are critical, but also heavily influenced by global powers, especially the United States. Now, with this new Arctic lane, China has carved a shortcut through the top of the world, bypassing conventional choke points. Think of it like discovering a secret express lane that no one else can use. Shipping times are cut dramatically, by nearly a week or more compared to older routes, and strategic control over these trade flows is subtly shifting. For the U.S., this is a significant development, a route that escapes its traditional geopolitical influence. For China, it's a game changer, a bold step toward controlling its own destiny in global trade. This is the opening act of a story that will not only reshape shipping logistics, but also ripple across economics, geopolitics, and energy security. By the end of this video, you'll see why this Arctic route could change the rules of global trade, and why the world is watching closely. To understand why China's Arctic route is such a big deal, we need to look at the roads it's trying to improve, or rather, the oceans it's trying to shortcut. For decades, most Asia-Europe trade has flowed through three major maritime highways, each with its own strengths and risks. First, the Suez Canal and the Strait of Malacca. Think of these as the interstate superhighways of global trade. They're the shortest, most efficient paths, carrying over 50% of all Asia-Europe cargo and more than 60% of Middle Eastern oil to Asia. But as we saw in 2021, even these superhighways aren't invincible. A single mega container ship got stuck in the Suez, halting traffic for days and forcing hundreds of ships to take a long detour around Africa's Cape of Good Hope. That brings us to the second route, the Panama Canal. This is a fast alternative for trans-Pacific trade, saving ships the 2-month slog around Cape Horn in South America. Imagine cutting a 60-day road trip down to just 14 days. Same idea. But the Panama Canal has limited capacity and is under heavy U.S. influence, meaning geopolitical tensions can quickly affect shipping. Lastly, the Cape of Good Hope is the old-school detour, longer, slower, and more expensive. It's like taking the scenic back roads when the main highway is blocked. Useful in emergencies, but costly and inefficient. Now, imagine China adding a fourth route, a completely new express lane over the top of the globe. By bypassing these traditional choke points, it reduces vulnerability, cuts travel time, and creates a strategic backup for its trade. The Arctic route isn't just faster, it's a power move. So why is China investing so heavily in this icy, challenging Arctic route? The answer lies in strategy, security, and efficiency. First, there's trade independence. Right now, most of China's goods and energy imports rely on maritime routes that are, in practice, under the influence of other powers, like the Suez Canal, which can be affected by political tensions in the Middle East, or the Panama Canal, where U.S. influence is strong. By developing the Arctic route, China is essentially building a backup highway for its global trade, a path that other countries can't easily control. Second, energy security is critical. China imports huge amounts of oil, natural gas, and raw materials, most of which travel by sea. A blockage or conflict in the traditional routes could create major energy shortages. The Arctic route offers an alternative, ensuring China's factories and cities keep running smoothly. Finally, there's efficiency. By sailing through the Arctic, shipping distances to Europe shrink by nearly 30% compared to the Suez Canal route. That's like turning a 10-hour drive into a 7-hour sprint. Fewer days at sea mean faster delivery, lower costs, and a competitive edge for Chinese exporters. In short, the Arctic route isn't just a shipping shortcut, it's a strategic tool. China is turning vulnerability into opportunity, protecting its trade from global choke points while boosting its own economic leverage. Now let's look at how this Arctic route actually works in practice, because the numbers and logistics tell the story of why it's so impressive. The route starts at China's major ports, Ningbo, Shanghai, and Qingdao, all bustling hubs handling millions of containers every year. From there, the ships sail north through the Arctic, a region once considered almost impossible for regular commercial shipping due to ice and harsh conditions. The journey continues to Europe, stopping at Felixstowe in the UK, Rotterdam in the Netherlands, Hamburg in Germany, and Gdansk in Poland. Distance-wise, the trip covers about 8,000 to 8,900 nautical miles, compared to roughly 12,800 nautical miles via the traditional Suez Canal route. That means shipping times drop dramatically. The first trial voyages took 26 days, but now the latest trip made it in just 18 days, a record for China-Europe shipping. To put it in perspective, it's like shaving a full week off a cross-continental flight schedule. China didn't get here overnight. This Arctic operation relies on icebreaker ships, specialized port infrastructure, and careful coordination with Russia. Together, these innovations solve the practical problems of extreme cold, drifting ice, and sparse support stations along the way. In other words, China has turned what used to be a dangerous seasonal route into a reliable and fast corridor for cargo, one that could compete with centuries-old shipping lanes. The Arctic route isn't just about faster shipping. It's a power play in global trade. By opening this path, China sidesteps traditional choke points like the Suez Canal and Panama Canal, which have long been influenced by the United States. For years, the U.S. has used its position to control or pressure global trade. For example, tariffs, port restrictions, and even talk of military intervention in strategic canals were ways to assert leverage. But with the Arctic route, China can move goods, especially high-value or high-tech exports, without worrying as much about geopolitical interference. Imagine a container full of advanced electronics or pharmaceuticals gliding past potential bottlenecks that could previously be used as political pressure points. This doesn't just affect trade, it subtly shifts global power dynamics. Countries that rely on Chinese imports or exports may start to see China as more independent and resilient. Meanwhile, the U.S. loses some of its strategic leverage over maritime commerce between Asia and Europe. In short, the Arctic route isn't just a shortcut. It's a strategic masterstroke, creating a trade lifeline that's harder for any single nation to control or disrupt. The Arctic route is just one piece of China's global trade puzzle. Over the past decade, China has built an extensive network of complementary routes, both by sea and land, to ensure its goods can reach the world reliably, even if one path faces disruptions. For instance, China has signed 70 bilateral or regional shipping agreements with 66 countries, creating a web of maritime connections that stretch across Asia, Europe, and Africa. On land, the China-Europe Railway Express has grown from fewer than 50 routes in 2015 to 93 scheduled routes covering 26 countries and more than 110,000 trips as of mid-2025. These trains carry around 19% of China-Europe trade, with an impressive total value exceeding $450 billion. Yet each mode has its pros and cons. Rail is faster than traditional sea transport, ideal for urgent goods, but has limited capacity, about 200 TEUs per train, less than 1/190th of a large container ship, and higher costs, roughly 3 times more per TEU. Sea routes handle massive volumes at lower cost, but are vulnerable to choke points. The Arctic route adds another layer, offering a strategic shortcut that balances speed, volume, and independence. Think of it like a city with multiple highways, express lanes, and rail networks. If one road is blocked, traffic can reroute efficiently. China is building a similar transportation city for its trade, reducing reliance on any single route and increasing resilience against global disruptions. Even though the Arctic route is groundbreaking, it's not without challenges. Right now, infrastructure in the far north is still developing. Ports, rescue stations, and navigation support are limited, meaning ships can't operate as freely as they do on traditional routes like the Suez Canal. Ice coverage is another major factor. Safe navigation is currently mostly restricted to July through September, and even then, icebreakers are needed to escort cargo ships. Capacity is also a constraint. A single Arctic voyage can't carry the same volume as a mega container ship on established sea lanes, so for now, it won't disrupt global trade on a large scale. Think of it like a new shortcut through a mountain pass. It's faster and strategic, but only small convoys can pass at a time until the road is fully developed. Looking ahead, the long-term potential is huge. Climate change is gradually melting Arctic ice, which could extend ice-free navigation to up to 6 months per year by 2050. With continued investment in ports, navigation systems, and icebreaker fleets, the Arctic route could become a reliable, strategic alternative for Asia-Europe shipping, cutting travel distances by almost 30% and offering China unprecedented control over its trade flows. In short, while the route is currently limited, its future could reshape global shipping, reduce dependency on U.S.-controlled choke points, and strengthen China's resilience in global trade. China's Arctic Express is more than just a new shipping lane. It's a statement of strategic independence. By opening this route, China is creating resilient trade channels that reduce reliance on U.S.-controlled waterways like the Suez and Panama Canals. Combined with the China-Europe Railway Express and its network of existing maritime routes, China is building a multi-layered trade system that can adapt to geopolitical tensions, blockages, or accidents. Right now, the route's scale is limited. It can't yet carry the volume of traditional shipping lanes, but its long-term potential is transformative. As Arctic ice continues to melt and infrastructure improves, this route could drastically shorten shipping times between Asia and Europe, lower costs, and give China a strategic edge in high-value and high-tech exports. In essence, what we're seeing is a shift in global trade dynamics. Strategic mastery over routes, smart infrastructure investment, and climate-adaptive planning are positioning China to reshape the rules of international commerce. The Arctic route isn't just about faster shipping, it's about control, resilience, and future-proofing trade in a complex world. If you want to stay ahead of these developments, follow our channel for updates on China's Arctic projects, global shipping innovations, and the evolving map of international trade. The world of trade is changing fast, and this route is just the beginning.